I've been called a lot of things in my life. Sweet, strong, stubborn, but never stupid. So when my grandson shoved me off the curb into oncoming traffic, and my son stood there and chuckled like it was some kind of harmless prank, I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even flinch when that horn blared and tires screeched just inches from where I fell. I brushed the gravel off my palms, stood back up, and said nothing. They kept laughing as I limped back onto the sidewalk. It had always been like that. Me giving, them taking, me bending, them pushing. And when I dared ask for a little respect, they made it seem like I was the problem. You're too sensitive. It was just a joke. Don't take everything so seriously, Grandma. But that day, something shifted in me. Maybe it was the way my knee throbbed for the rest of the afternoon, or how they didn't even bother to ask if I was okay. Maybe it was the look in my grandson's eyes. No concern, just pride in his little trick. Maybe it was coming so close to death and realizing it would have been a family member's fault. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the quiet ache I felt in my chest as I stood there, realizing these were the people I'd poured my life into. And for what? I raised my son on my own. His father took off before he said his first word. I worked 2 jobs, packed lunches with handwritten notes, sat through every parent-teacher meeting even when I'd just come off a night shift. I held him when he had nightmares. I clapped loudest at his high school graduation. I gave him everything I didn't have growing up. And when he had a child of his own, when that boy came into the world screaming like he already knew how hard it was going to be, I promised myself I'd do it all again. Better, if I could. By the time he was 12, I had a college fund started. By 13, a secret savings account for his first car. I clipped coupons. I sewed clothes. I stopped going to the salon and started cutting my own hair just to stretch those dollars further. The dealership had it waiting. Midnight blue, leather seats, safety features, premium tires, paid in full. I was going to hand him the keys on his 16th birthday with a big red bow and tears in my eyes, thinking maybe, just maybe, this would show him how deeply I loved him. But you don't give gifts to people who throw you into the street and laugh about it. The day after that joke, I sat at my kitchen table with my sore knee elevated and my laptop open. The email confirmation from the dealership still sat unread in my inbox. The one that said, "Congratulations on your purchase," like it was something to celebrate. I sipped my tea, heart thudding not from pain, but purpose. Then I picked up the phone and called. I told them I'd changed my mind. I didn't need to explain why. I wasn't going to beg for an exception or make up a sob story. I simply said I wouldn't be finalizing the delivery, and I wanted the cancellation processed immediately. There was a pause on the other end. They asked if something had happened. Yes, something had happened, but it wasn't their business. When the boy's birthday came, I baked a small cake and dropped it off at their front door. A plain vanilla, no decorations, no card. I didn't stay. I didn't smile. I didn't even wait for them to open it. I turned and walked away, just like they had walked over me so many times before, that night. Silence. The next day, a few texts. Casual, short. Like they were fishing but didn't want to look too eager. "Thanks for the cake. Quiet birthday this year. Hope you're okay." Still, I said nothing. It wasn't until a week later that I got the phone call. My son's voice, tight and agitated, trying to sound calm. They'd found out. Apparently he was friends with someone at the dealership, and they told him about what I'd done. Suddenly, the cake wasn't enough. Suddenly, they remembered how much I meant to them. There were apologies, half-hearted ones. Promises that the prank wasn't meant to go that far. Excuses about how boys will be boys and he didn't know any better. My son said he was sorry, that I'd misunderstood, that they loved me. Of course they did. I listened to it all. Then I told him no. No, the car wasn't coming. No, I wouldn't be reordering it. No, I didn't misunderstand anything. I saw it all clearly now. There was a long silence on the line, the kind that fills a room with tension even when you're alone. Then he started begging. He said it was cruel to take something away the boy never even knew about, that I was punishing him too harshly, that this wasn't like me. That's where he was wrong. This was exactly like me, the me that finally had enough. I've since taken that refunded money and opened a new account. No names on it but mine, no big announcements. I'll decide what to do with it later. Maybe I'll take a trip, somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. Or maybe I'll donate it to kids who treat people better than the ones they share blood with. Because love should never be rewarded with cruelty, and grandmothers should never be the punchline. Not anymore. I used to think there was nothing more exhausting than raising 3 children. That was until I watched those 3 children raise children of their own. Now that is exhausting, on a soul-deep level, watching them spoil those kids rotten while pretending to be saints about it. My name's Marion, though most of the time I'm just grandma or mum. I'm 72, widowed for over a decade now, and I live in a modest but well-kept bungalow at the edge of town. I do my own gardening, pay my own bills, and still read 3 books a week. My memory's sharp. My joints aren't what they used to be, sure, but I get around fine. Still, somehow, in this family I've become invisible. I wasn't always like this. I used to be sharp in other ways, strategic, persuasive, respected. I was the one people in high places called when they needed someone to handle things. I wasn't famous, I wasn't flashy, but I had reach. I worked behind the scenes in corporate development for over 30 years, mostly for the same conglomerate. They called me the fixer because I didn't just find problems. I saw things 5 steps ahead. I helped select CEOs. I cleaned up internal disasters. And I was damn good at it. But you'd never guess that from the way my family treats me now. My son, David, the middle child, was always the charming one. All smiles, sweet manners, and just enough discipline to seem like a good kid. He did all right in school. Mediocre, if we're being honest. But the kind of mediocre that's coated in charisma. You know the type. He coasted. Always had. Always will, if someone's around to clear the path for him. David married a woman named Sylvia, who had champagne tastes and the patience of a sugar-high toddler. She raised their kids like delicate royalty, especially the eldest, Brandon. Brandon is 15 now. A teenage hurricane, unchecked confidence, and unlimited access to his mother's wallet. He's the kind of boy who scoffs at homemade meals and complains if the Wi-Fi drops for even a second. He owns more designer sneakers than books. He's never been told no without someone apologizing after. And yet, I love the boy. I do. Love makes you foolish like that. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind where everything moves slow and sticky. David and Sylvia had brought the kids over for one of their rare visits. Really, they just wanted to drop the kids off and spend the afternoon running errands, which probably meant brunch and a walk through that overpriced home decor place they like. The kids stayed behind with me. Brandon mostly sat on the couch glued to his phone, mumbling about how slow my internet was. His younger sister, Lily, was colouring at the kitchen table. The youngest, Max, was making my cat deeply uncomfortable with his grabby hands. I made them grilled cheese and tomato soup. A classic. Brandon sniffed the air and looked mildly offended. "You don't have Uber Eats here?" he asked. I smiled. "Not for grilled cheese, I don't." He rolled his eyes, but ate anyway. Later, when he finished, he didn't bother clearing his plate. Instead, he pushed it aside with the back of his hand and slouched into the cushions like he'd been through war. I was wiping down the counter when I heard him mutter, "Ugh, why does Dad keep dumping us with this useless old woman?" I froze. Not because the words hurt, though they did, in a dull, familiar way, but because of what followed. David laughed. Not a big laugh, just a quiet chuckle as he strolled into the room, back from his little break. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there with the dishcloth in my hand, staring at the streak of soup on the counter I hadn't wiped yet. My heart beat slower, not in sadness, but in a sort of old, iron-heavy silence. That kind that settles in your bones. Useless. I've been called many things in my life, never that. They left eventually, off to their busy lives. No thank yous, no hugs. Brandon asked if he could take a soda for the road. I said no. He took it anyway. That night, I sat on my back porch, watching the light fade over the hedges I trimmed myself just last week. I thought about how long I'd been dismissed in this family, how gradually it happened. You start being helpful, then convenient, then optional. Eventually, you become background noise. But I remembered something then. Something David never knew. See, he works at a big company, fancy offices, always expanding. He's a mid-level manager now, but he talks like he's the CEO. The job came to him 5 years ago like a miracle. He never really understood how. I knew, though, because I made it happen. 5 years ago, after David had been laid off from his second marketing job, he was spiraling. Credit cards maxed out, Sylvia threatening to move back in with her mother, Brandon still young enough to believe his dad was a superhero. David applied everywhere, heard nothing. So I called in a favor. The CEO, Pauline, and I go way back. We used to sit across from each other in boardroom meetings when she was still cutting her teeth in business. I helped guide her through her first hostile takeover. We respected each other, so I called her. "Pauline," I'd said, "there's a young man applying for your junior operations role. His name's David Marsh. He's got potential. Not flashy, but steady. Reliable." Pauline hesitated. "Marsh? He's not showing a strong resume, Marion." "He's better than the paper says," I replied. "He just needs a push, and he's mine." That was all she needed. She hired him on the spot. Gave him the smallest desk in the office. Sure. But the rest was up to him. And he did all right. He's still there. Got promoted twice. Thinks it's all merit. I never told him. Didn't need to. It was enough to see him stand on his own. Until now. So the next morning, I brewed a strong cup of coffee and sent a short message to Pauline. "Hope you're well. Thought you'd enjoy this clip of Brandon. He's got your granddaughter's attitude, I swear. Also, wondering if David's due for any evaluations? Let me know if I can help." She replied within the hour. "He's come a long way. But yes, we've got leadership reviews next quarter. Want me to ruffle him a bit?" I smiled. Nothing dramatic, just a gentle reminder. Later that week, David called me. His voice was tense. "Mum, did you ever know someone at my workplace?" I played it cool. "Why?" "Well, the CEO mentioned you, said she remembers you fondly, that you're the reason I got hired." I let that hang in the air a bit. "You are the reason, aren't you?" I took a sip of my tea. She owed me a favor, that's all. Silence. Then, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" He didn't answer. Now when they visit, David actually looks me in the eye. Sometimes he helps clear the plates. Sylvia, still oblivious as ever, chirps about redecorating their office nook. But David, he watches me differently now. As for Brandon, he hasn't apologized. I don't expect him to. He's still young, still cushioned by the illusion that the world bends for him. But maybe one day he'll find himself backed into a corner, needing help, needing someone who sees more than he shows. Maybe then he'll understand what useless old women are really made of. We're not invisible. We're just watching and remembering everything. Funny how life can sneak up on you when you least expect it. One day, you're healthy, strong, tending to your garden and baking your famous banana bread. And the next, your body betrays you. That's what happened to me. I was 68, retired, living alone in the same cozy house I'd raised my 3 children in. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Full of memories, laughter, quiet mornings, and the echoes of old lullabies. Then came the diagnosis. Complications from an autoimmune disease. Not terminal, but enough to knock the wind out of me. Fatigue, brain fog, pain that made simple tasks feel like Olympic events. The worst part? It wasn't even the illness. It was how quickly the people I gave my life to vanished. My oldest, Keisha, said she was too busy with work to come help. Darren, my only son, mumbled something about not being cut out for caregiving and offered to find someone affordable online. And Trina? Well, she outright ignored my calls, said she never got them, blamed her voicemail. The 3 of them had grown so distant over the years, but I held on to the hope that if I really needed them, they'd show up. They didn't. I tried not to take it personally at first. Told myself everyone had their own lives, grown-up problems, kids of their own. But when weeks passed and not one of them checked in, not even a, "How are you holding up, Ma?" the truth settled in, bitter and sharp. They had abandoned me. Luckily, I had savings, more than they knew. My late husband, God rest his soul, left me with a tidy insurance policy. I invested it smartly, lived modestly, never flaunted it, never acted like I had money, because in the end, I just wanted peace. But the truth was, I had enough tucked away to leave each of them $1 million. That was the plan. A little thank you for taking care of their mama in her final stretch. But they failed the test. At first, I cried. A lot. Cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I got mad. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just mad enough to wake up. I wasn't dead. I wasn't useless. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let my own children write me off like an expired coupon. So I made a new plan. First, I hired a nurse, Miss Elaine. Kind soul. She came in 3 times a week to help with the essentials, and I paid her double what she asked, not just because she was good, but because she cared. We laughed, swapped recipes, even played a little bingo when I had the energy. She became like family, real family. Next, I made some changes to my will. That part was satisfying. I left small tokens to each of my kids, just enough so they couldn't contest it. A little something so they'd know they hadn't been forgotten. Just rewritten. The rest, I split among causes close to my heart. A domestic violence shelter, a reading program at the library, and a huge chunk went to Miss Elaine for being the daughter none of mine chose to be. But the cherry on top? That came when I got better. Turns out my illness was manageable with the right treatment, therapy, and care. Took about a year, but I started feeling stronger, even took up walking again. And once I was back on my feet, I decided I was done hiding, done being quiet. So I told the truth. Not in a dramatic, tear-streaked way, just honest. I wrote an open letter, posted it on Facebook, sent it to the local church newsletter where all the aunties and cousins would read it. I kept it real. I talked about how I'd been sick, how I'd needed help, how not one of my children came, how they didn't call, didn't check in, and how I had originally planned to leave each of them $1 million, but didn't. The story spread like wildfire. People messaged me. Some were kind, others were shocked. And my kids? Oh, they came running. Suddenly, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Keisha showed up with a box of muffins and fake tears. Darren sent flowers. Trina called sobbing, saying she never knew it was that serious. I listened to every word and smiled politely. But I didn't budge. You don't get to fail the test and still expect the prize. I let them back in, but only at arm's length. We exchanged holiday cards, short phone calls. No more bending over backwards to be the good mama. That version of me retired. What came in her place was a woman who valued her own worth, who knew that love without action was just noise. I spent my days painting, volunteering, and going on day trips with Miss Elaine. We laughed a lot. Real laughs, not the kind you fake at family gatherings. My house got warmer, my heart got lighter. I wasn't lonely anymore. I was free. Sometimes I look back and wonder if I did the right thing. Then I remember those silent nights when my phone didn't ring, the empty porch, the meals I ate alone. And I know, yes, I did what I had to do. Because love, real love, shows up when it matters. And when mine didn't, I learned how to show up for myself.